Okay, well, there's probably a few more minutes as people will join in, but first of all, welcome and thank you for joining us this morning for this webinar. This particular webinar, we're going to be talking about facing up to the leadership challenges. We know there are a lot of those about at the moment. And in particular, we're going to focus in on one of our new programs, the Manchester Leadership Development Programme. So as I said in the instructions, if you've got questions, this is going to be a fairly interactive session. If you've got questions, please write them in the chat pane. And then at the end of the session, we're going to go through a quick Q&A. So if you've got questions about the content of the program, pricing, duration, any of that sort of thing, or who it's suitable for, if you put that in the chat pane, that would be fantastic. Okay, so first things first is to introduce myself and my colleagues to you. So Dane, can I ask you to unmute yourself, turn your camera on and introduce yourself?
Hello everyone, yes, I'm Dr. Dane Anderton. I'm one of the Programme Directors at Alliance Manchester Business School, and in particular I programme manage this particular programme, the Manchester Leadership Development Programme. I'm a senior lecturer at the university and also have a keen interest in social responsibility as the lead for the department as well.
Okay, thank you Dane, always good to see you. And now, Jo, could you introduce yourself?
Hi, yeah, I'm Jo Blaine. I look after the marketing of all the executive education programs at the business school. So that's all the sort of training and development, leadership management programs that we deliver at the business school.
Thank you, Jo. And I'm Kieran. So I work on client relations and recruitment for the open programs, specifically leadership and management development. So, just a brief word, obviously an ever-present topic for us at the moment is COVID, just to give you an update of where we are as the business school and university. So we took the precaution, as you'd expect, over the summer to just shut campus completely. We value the safety and the well-being of all of our staff, delegates and students. We did begin a phased and very much controlled reopening of campus a couple of weeks ago. And that was very much limited to those sort of clinical programs or laboratory-based programs that are very difficult to dial into. Even so, that teaching has been very much at social distance with new protocols and measures in place. So the vast majority of our programs, it continues, but it all continues online. As I'm sure you're familiar now with Zoom, so are we, and some of the other platforms. So we keep going, albeit slightly different. So I've introduced the team to you this morning, but for those of you that aren't familiar with the business school, I just wanted to take a couple of minutes just to give you a brief introduction, and no better way of doing it than talking about our philosophy and our motto, original thinking applied. So what does this actually mean? Well, Manchester was one of the first 2 business schools to open in the UK. And going back to 1965, we've got a history and a reputation we're very proud of. And we like to think a track record of delivering original and innovative business solutions and delegate solutions through our world-class teaching and world-class research. And on that topic, in terms of research, Manchester University and the business school have got a long track record of original thinking. So Manchester University is the home of splitting the atom, it's the home of the first computer, and was actually the first place that started a nursing teaching degree. And finally, in terms of application, and this is an important point, if you do choose to come on one of our programs, you'll hear a little bit about what's called the Manchester method. There's no great mystery to this. What this is how we take theory and we turn it into practice. So the Manchester method is generally, in a nutshell, it's about taking that theory, learning and reflecting as a group, and applying it in a work-based context, and that's how you apply the learning. One final point, if you look to the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, you should be able to see these little accreditation badges. Now, a lot of business schools are accredited, so that you know that you're dealing with a credible institution. And in fact, it's something like only about 25% of the business schools in the US have, for example, the AACSB accreditation. Well, Manchester Business School, we like to think it's a bit special because we're one of only 1% of schools worldwide that carry all 3 accreditations. Normally, a business school, it's sufficient just to carry 1, but we carry all 3. So enough about us. What are we going to cover today? Well, today we're going to talk a little bit first about some of the challenges that managers are facing out there in the world right now. Then I'm going to hand over to my colleague, Dr. Dane Anderton. He's going to talk a little bit about different ways in which we can return to work. Specifically, then we're going to dive into the Leadership and Management Development Programme, look at the impact, look at the benefits, and then we've left quite a chunk of today for Q&A, for your questions and answers. Okay, so what are the challenges that leaders face right now? It's not a complete list, but I'm going to share with you a bit of a poll. So you should be able to see a poll right now on your screen. So I'm going to ask you to vote. Which two areas do you think are the biggest challenges for leaders right now? So just pick two. We've got repositioning the business, leading remotely, organizational financial health, adapting the strategy, delivering change, restructuring or reorganizing, supporting my team, or other. So if you just take a couple of minutes, hopefully you'll see that on the screen, and then we'll share the results. Okay, so everybody voting, this is looking good. Okay, I'm just going to give about 5 more seconds. If you haven't voted already, just pick a couple. So 3, 2, 1, let's end the poll and let's share the results. Well, very interestingly, and somewhat ironically for being on Zoom this morning, pardon me, guess what? Leading remotely is one of the biggest challenges we face right now. Who could have predicted that? Coming in as a very strong second, obviously, is repositioning business. So we all know the world's changed, and managers can often feel an awful lot of pressure to try and sit in the middle and work out what this means for their organization, what this means for themselves, their clients, their team, everything. So next we're gonna turn to what those implications are of these challenges in the next slide. So I'm just going to stop sharing the results with you now. Thank you for that. There's another poll coming up in a minute. So looking at these challenges, particularly working remotely and repositioning the business, we're looking at 3 areas this is having an impact. First of all, on you as a manager. Secondly, your team. And thirdly, your skills. So in terms of the first one, let's just have a quick look at that. So managers, as I said, very often feeling the pressure, feeling more squeezed than ever before, more demands being placed on them, and sometimes priorities shifting from day to day or minute to minute. For a lot of people, there's this pressure to be always on. We're now working from home. So do you answer an email after 7 o'clock? Do you send an email at the weekend? Maybe you're juggling some childcare or some work in your personal life that you need to sort of work around. So there's more and more pressure on the work-life balance. But also people are looking to leaders and managers to help them navigate the change. Well, before you can do that, you've got to be able to navigate the change. And there's a lot of hassle and problems and stress from coping with uncertainty. Looking at your team are probably feeling very similar things. A lot of them are going to be working remote, feeling disconnected, losing focus, sometimes dips in motivation, but also managing that communication. You know, you can't have all of these Zoom calls all the time. You can't have constant email. How are we finding new ways to communicate? The pressure's on to keep in touch with people, but not overwhelm them. And there's definitely a greater need for flexibility. And finally, let's look at the skills. Well, you're a skilled manager, you're a skilled leader, but some of those skills are being stretched in ways that we didn't expect. We're being asked to do things we haven't been asked to do in the past. Pick up new skills. For example, everybody probably has had a crash course in video conferencing, whether it's Zoom or GoToMeeting or Teams, and you're starting to find out some of it's simple and some of it isn't. So as a manager, in terms of what comes next, in terms of repositioning the business and leading your team remotely, we're going to have a quick look at skills and what skills you think you might need. So we're going to start another poll. And again, same as before, if you just choose 2, I've only picked 5 or 6 areas. Which of these areas do you think you'd like to improve or strengthen? Is it your particular leadership style and your confidence? Is it leading your team? Finance, commercial awareness, really important in terms of repositioning the business. Is it strategic planning? Again, really important in terms of repositioning the business. Innovating, finding those new ways of doing things because the old ways don't work anymore. Or delivering complex projects. Maybe you're having to completely reorganize the business. So take a couple of seconds, again, pick 2, and I will share the results with you at the end. So we're still having some votes coming in. We've got about 67% of people voting. 1 or 2 more. Okay, so I'm going to end the polling in 3, 2, 1. So that's about 83% of people voted, and let's have a look at the results. So unsurprisingly, innovating, finding new ways of doing things has come out top. And that's no small surprise when we think what's going outside there at the moment. And strategic planning, again, we're being asked as managers and leaders, not just to change the way we're doing things, but to rewrite the book. So thank you for that. And this is a very good time. I'm going to stop sharing the results of the poll. What we're going to do now is I'm going to hand over to my colleague, Dr. Dane Anderton, and he's going to talk to you about some of those changes and what it means for the return to work.
Thank you very much, Kieran. Yes, so quite interesting polls there. And I've took note that digital leadership, remote working, innovation, doing things slightly differently and how we fit that into the strategic mix came out top there. And it's quite interesting, we've got to look in areas where we might not typically look. Recently, I've developed a conference looking at the third sector, and what's come out of that is that with this return to work, with the issues of remote working, there's a kind of creep, if you like, that we're seeing and reported in the BBC and other places and other outlets, that people are turning more towards surveillance, making sure people are doing the right thing when they're working remotely. But actually, can we take a different approach to that? So again, that comes back to, is there a way of doing things differently? How do we actually lead through this digital age that we're kind of having thrust upon us? But also how we kind of factor that into our adjusting of our strategy, that revaluation of strategy at the moment. So if we can move on to the next slide. There are kind of a couple of options that we all have in front of us right now. With the restrictions wavering here, there and everywhere, we can say, right, what are we trying to do and trying to achieve in all of this? Shall we just go back and continue what we were doing, back to business as usual at this point? That's one option. The second option is we can say, right, yeah, let's have a complete reset and a rethink here, plow lots of kind of time and resource into that if we wanted to. Or is the kind of that third option of saying, well, no, let's try and continue doing what we do best. Let's, yes, rethink how that can look and transform for the future. Okay, and that transformation is not just a transformation in terms of how you might do things differently, but thinking again about some cornerstones and key concerns of how our world is going to look going forward. And that means transforming economically, looking at our business model, looking at how we can be much more sustainable. And that means sustainable in an economic, environmental, but also how we might be now thinking about that societal impact. And if we can bring the two together, having an impact and doing something for the benefit of whether that be the planet, the people, our employees, and trying to think much more holistically rather than just the bottom line, we can then hopefully transform and do things better in the future. Those firms which have a long-term view actually survive these peaks and troughs that we have in our economy, therefore being more resilient organizations. Resilience defined broadly as the ability to recover from crises. And that's what we're finding now. The firms that actually, try to just continue as normal are finding that very difficult. Those that maybe went for a reset to transform here are actually now thinking about things much more deeply, trying to come through this. Okay, so how do we link this then into the Manchester Leadership Development Programme? The programme has been revamped of recent and kind of looks at people who are in management roles or actually in leadership roles and want to develop, refresh their knowledge in these areas. So we've developed a programme to kind of tailor around you, covering some key cornerstones of organisational thinking, okay? Starting with you, going right the way through to strategy and how we do things differently, but then equally at the end of the programme, how we actually do the change, how we actually bring that about. Okay, next slide, please. So in terms of the modules that we cover, the workshops that you will go through, they're very practical, even in an online sense. When we run these sessions online, they are very interactive. We want you to be getting the answers to the engaging and impact piece here. So being able to evaluate how I take some new knowledge, apply into my workplace, and then have that impact both personally and for your organization. So the types of workshops that we have 5 in total. One that focuses on leadership, and that's you, and that includes a Hogan psychometric assessment in there as well. So we've got to start with you identifying your motives and your values and your preferences, if you like, for better words. and then understanding how you can then on the second day develop that team around you, how you can engage your team, how you can motivate that team, get the most out of the team. Okay, but understand all those different team dynamics and how they play out with your particular leadership style. So again, these days are not seen in isolation but tied through and weave through out the week. The finance session is not, again, us teaching you to be an accountant. I certainly wouldn't sign up for that, but it's about giving you the language, the understanding, the ability when the finance people come to you and want to take some money off your team or your division, you can actually have the fight back. Or equally, you can flip it around and write that business case, that justification with the right language, with the right understanding around how finance works in the organization. So we call this finance for managers, finance for leaders. The fourth workshop that you would do on the course is around strategy, which then combines strategy and innovation. The two are seen as interlinked here. Then you've got project management, which helps bring all of that together. And I'll go into a little bit more detail in a moment. But we've also attached to this a qualifications. So you're not just coming on and learning new things, you're actually looking at the impact and then award for that as well. So it's about taking what you have, putting that into practice, doing a write-up for us. It gets assessed by the university, resulting in an ILM Level 7 award in leadership and management. But equally as well, we support you. We want to include coaching in terms of 3 sessions that will look at your behavioural coaching aspects. And this is around your personalized leadership coaching. So again, it ties back to the very first session that you will do on leadership and you. So we can move on to the next slide. So putting all that into a bigger picture, what does we call this a program architecture. How does the big piece sit together? So the piece that wraps and holds all of this together is an online learning portal where we will do an online induction to get people to allow people to meet each other in an online space. We have a set of pre-works that we will ask you to do to get engaged and start to explore these concepts and topics. And there's also further resources throughout the workshop day, but also post-session as well. So you're having a whole learning experience wrapped around you from start to finish with access to all of that resource and that bank of information for 6 months post-program as well. So in terms of the first module, again, I said before, it's about leadership in practice. It's about you. We use a Hogan psychometric to kind of get under this nitty-gritty of what drives you, how people see you in the workplace, but also what we call your dark side traits might be. So when times get tough, how you respond. But then that leads into the second day. How do those dark side traits, so when things get tough, how does your leadership style impact your team? How can you get the most from your team? How can you motivate them? How can you bring through talent and understand basically what you might not be very good at? How can you plug those gaps through a good and effective team that is well led through you? Moving on to the third workshop in the series will be about the numbers, knowing the numbers, asking the right questions, putting the right business case forward, having that language, that ability to speak across the various different aspects of the organization where finance is of a main concern. The fourth session, is around strategy and innovation. So many of you highlighted you want to know how to do things differently. Right, I'm going to be honest, we don't have the answers, but we have the tools to get you there. And that's what this program is all about. This is about giving you the right mindset, understanding how strategy and innovation can link together so you can get the most from your organization and your team from that, and how we might impact that wider strategy, how we evaluate it, how we look at our resources that are needed, how we turn them into capabilities that are dynamic and work with the times and change. Then finally, how do we get it done? How do we kind of I understand myself, my team, I've now got the justification, the ability to write that business case. I understand the vision, how I might want to do something differently. Okay, how do I do it? How can I deliver that? So it's giving you the tools to give you a master plan, to develop that plan, to move forward through project management to effect that change. The award bit is taken care of in the yellow, which is the work-based projects. What we ask you to do is take all that learning, look at a project, a timely project within a 3 to 6 month period after you've had these workshop sessions, and start to write that up, have that impact in your organization. We'll ask you to write what we call a reflective practice paper, born out of the Manchester method, which goes back to what Kieran said originally. around our methods and what we do. It's very much about that impact piece. So you would have come along today, explored and engaged in our contact, explained it, indulged, evaluated the content, then looked for that impact, that evaluation and impact, then resulting in an award as well. Okay, and on top of that is your leadership coaching as well. So can we move on to the next slide? The course comes in many different formats. So I've just outlined to you a program architecture, how things work, and we deliver that in various different formats. So we have a staggered approach, what we call the part-time approach here, which is one session, one of those workshop sessions over a 9-week period. So one every other week. So that allows you time in between to start the consolidation, if you like, to start thinking about that impact piece, maybe even put some coaching sessions in between as well. But fundamentally, it's the same workshops in the same order, still wrapped around with the online environment that helps you pre, during and post session as well. But we also have an intent. So those of you who might want to get this done, want to get the most from it as quickly as possible, we do have a 1-week full-time option, which we run usually in the summer period around July, and that again is one day after another, so 5 full days, but you still get the same benefits of having the pre-works, the online space, the online community, then the post-session resources as well that you can take, and the ability to still do a project. Okay, so this is where we say the project can be 3 to 6 months. If you're on the part-time route, it might take you a little bit longer. If you're on the full-time route, because you're doing this condensed into 1 week, you may be able to get that project up and running live, the impact in your organization, the development of self done within a 3-month period. Okay, so what I'm trying to get across is we're very flexible here in terms of how this program works. In terms of delivery, we do it in a in-person and online format. So unfortunately, with the COVID situation, a lot of courses are going online, and that is our intention as well for the foreseeable in terms of our February intake. But we do want to get back to an in-person intake, and we're hoping that the situation does improve over the next couple of months. And again, the in-person one possibly, maybe over the summer, we may be able to do that in that full-time 1-week intense session. Next slide, please. So kind of breaking down, I've mentioned before, we are going to be looking at this in an online forum for the foreseeable future. So what does that program actually look like? Well, not that too different from what I outlined in the program architecture. We will still have that program induction and that community starting and developing online. We use a program called Blackboard, where we host all of our content. We use other programs as well to kind of engage you, to kind of get you exploring and make that journey as easy as possible. But what we want to stress here is that we still want to have that human element here. We still will have live workshops, okay? And I want to divide that into kind of a 70-30 as a broad program. 30% will be self-directed learning, where you will do tasks offline, such as the Hogan psychometric. You will do some tasks online, where we'll ask you to go onto Blackboard, have a look around, download some content, filling some pre-works, which may be based online. But the vast majority, the value content is still going to be delivered to you online live. So through a Zoom, using breakout rooms, using live whiteboards, using technologies like Padlet to kind of gather and bring together and thought storm through these processes, and also give you the time to consolidate and reflect. So that high value content and input will still make up the majority of this program through the taught sessions that are live. But also, again, you've got that work-based project that I mentioned, which is supported by 3 group online sessions with obviously my door would be open throughout that time as well. So you can rely on me, you can email me, and I'm only a phone call away to help you with that project as well. So the project piece being one which is, again, slightly more self-directed because it's your project, your organization, your impact piece. But again, that online community, program community is something that is wrapped around the course for you, okay? And that involves forums, online spaces to share as well. So things that we would still be doing if the program was face-to-face, but in fact, the 70% bit, rather than doing it face-to-face, we're using an online forum for that, being Zoom or an online medium for safety. But then that increases accessibility as well. Next slide, please. So I just want to stress to you, if you want to kind of go away and say, I want to get on this program, what are the impact points for me? What can I say? How am I developing? Where are the opportunities? Well, I break this down basically into kind of 5 incremental opportunities that you have. So every day that you do with us, every workshop that you do, you have time to go away and think about how that goes into my team, how that goes into my organization, how I can have impact in that particular space around around leadership, teams and talent, finance, strategy, and project management. But equally, you have a chance to have a radical transformation in your team, in your organization through, excuse me, I'm going to have to take a drink. Oh, I'm getting too enthusiastic. So radical transformation in terms of that work-based project that you will do, that's your chance again to demonstrate personal organizational impact here, but also the coaching again is that radical transformation that you can be supported through bringing back that Hogan psychometric back into looking at self, being more self-aware. If you look at any kind of studies that are being done, especially if you're in the UK, the industrial strategy, for example, puts the issue of productivity and doing things better and thinking differently down to the lack of leadership and management training amongst the workforce. Okay, so this is your opportunity to shine. It's your opportunity to have that organizational impact. So altogether, we can identify 7 points of impact for you throughout this program. Next slide, please. Okay, so in terms of the benefits for you, what are you walking away with on this program? Well, we can list a hell of a lot of things here for you. So I've just put a few on the slides here for you to look at. But the key one, the top one in that benefits for you is that self-awareness piece. The more self-aware we are and understand who we are, where we might not be good, but where we excel, that's the key to good leadership. That's a way of understanding then how I can build a team that supports, how I can have that vision where I can spend my time as well and where it's best spent. It's about developing the new skills and tools on the program. Each of the workshops each day tool you up, if you like, and give you post-session resources, which again you can further look into. Take the ones that work for you, that you feel most comfortable with. But the key things around this that we get from our delegates is confidence, walking away with, I've had that safe space to just ask what I think was a stupid question, but do you know what? There's no such thing. It's about asking it, understanding, walking away then with that confidence. Qualifications, networks, and growing you as a leader. But equally, selling this to your employer if you want them to fund you, for example, but understanding how you can translate that organizational impact and link it back to your own personal development. It's about being a skilled leader, being able to take a team, increase the team's productivity, having that real impact piece, that storytelling piece through the work-based project, okay? Giving you that more strategic view of the organization and having that self-directed development, being able to take those away with you. If you can move on to the next slide, please. We're now on to the Q&A. Okay, so I would invite Kieran back on screen as well. I hope that's given you a kind of a well-rounded overview of the program, what we're here to try and achieve. But again, it's about co-creating with you. Okay, and that's where the pre-works come into that. Tell us the problems, tell us the opportunities that you have, and having those key discussions throughout the workshops. Thank you for listening.
Oh, brilliant, Dane. Thank you. New skills for new normal and all that. So we've got a couple of questions coming in. There was one that happened partway through, and thank you, Sarah, for your patience. So there was 2 parts to the question. The first part of the question was when can you enrol for this program? Well, enrollment's open now. We've got the next cohort will run in February, and that's the online version that Dane mentioned. And then we have a 1-week intensive course running next June. So that's February next year for an online sort of, the taught elements take about 9 weeks. The actual project takes about 2 or 3 months longer than that. So that's in February. And in June, it's a very intensive 1-week sort of face-to-face. That's the intention. We shall see when we get closer to that time whether or not it's safe to do so. So that's enrolment. In terms of your other question, it was, again, I'm sure other people have got the same question, Sarah, so thank you for that. The apprenticeship levy. This program doesn't qualify for any apprenticeship levy funds because of the way it's structured. It's not long enough, essentially. you would need to qualify for this sort of program. You'd need to be looking at least a 12-month for a level 3 commitment and 2 years for a levels 5 or 7. But we do have some other programs that might suit you, Sarah. So if you don't mind, I'm happy to take that particular question offline and reply to you personally. What we have tried to do for this program, because obviously budgets are tight, is we've given people lots of options. Moving the program from face-to-face to online has allowed us to pass on some savings to delegates and to organisations, because we're not paying for the rooms, we're not paying for food and drink and you know, staffing. Really, they're not there on site anymore. So we can actually be, I think, pretty competitive if your budget is limited. And of course, the more people we take from one organisation, the better the pricing works out. So hopefully that's answered those 2 questions, Sarah. Any other questions?
It is probably just worth mentioning, Kieran, isn't it? This is just one program in a suite of programs. And, you know, if you're interested in this particular program, we've got a suite of YouTube videos which give you a taster as well, which I think we've got the links to show you in a moment. But if you go onto our YouTube channel, the University of Manchester's YouTube channel, you see, I think it's 4 sessions we did over the summer, giving you 30-minute snapshots of what these workshops cover. So again, if you want to make your mind up about this program, but as I said, we have a suite of programs we can introduce you to. If the apprenticeship levy is something you're interested in, have a conversation with us as well.
I had a question come in very early on in the presentation again, so thank you, Christian, for waiting for the answer. So, Dane, this one kind of relates to the managing teams and managing and leading others areas of the programme, I think. So, Christian's asked, how do you deal with change-resistant people within a department? Have you got any top tips for that one?
Top tips for that? I would say definitely watch our YouTube video. Definitely watch that, because we had a key speaker on that day. He's Dr. Paul Evans, who is kind of an expert in that. I will profess that isn't my area of expertise. Mine is strategy and innovation. But definitely, I would say look at our YouTube video. He gives you some top tips. There's always going to be politics, and that's what Paul likes. He likes to get on. We tend to say politics, we shouldn't look at that in the organisation. It's a dirty thing. But unfortunately, it happens. You've got to engage in it. And he looks at that and kind of lifts the lid on it. So I'm sorry I can't give you some top tips today as such, but the top tip would be look at that YouTube video and look at the content Paul kind of goes through in this session. And he does give you some quick tips from that. But I think the key as well is this program, looking at the first day, your leadership style. Understanding yourself, being more self-aware is key to then understanding how you develop that team around you and how you manage it and lead it.
Okay, another question. Thank you for that, Dane. I know Paul's done some brilliant sessions, just particularly on change management as well. So he'd bring that expertise to that session on managing a team. So question from Wes, the deadline to enroll, normally it takes about 30 days before the program starts. So you can enroll anytime up to 30 days before. 30 days before is really just the time it allows us to set you up on our IT systems, on our platforms, so you can access all the right information. And in terms of what the online course costs, well, the face-to-face version comes in for all the 5 modules that you've seen, plus all the teaching, plus the webinars, plus the ILM award, plus the coaching. That comes in at £4,990. Doing it online is a considerable saving. It comes in at £3,745. So again, Wes, I will email you that information, and I'll also circulate it with the slides that come out at the end of this. So it's 3,745 for online, 4,990 for face-to-face. Any other questions coming in? I wanted to make a suggested question about level 7. So Dane, I think this is a level 7 award. So it's at the tier of, you know, your sort of senior and senior professional leader, but this is the award. Could you then sort of study on this and eventually add more credits and sort of go on that, continue on that journey and turn that level 7 award one day into a certificate or a diploma?
Certainly can. You certainly can. So with the ILM, you don't just get access to our resources, you'll get access to their entire learning portal as well. So you can then actually become part of the ILM's network and body, if you like. And you can definitely take this award and turn it into a certificate and diploma by just adding a few more credits. And that's something you can take straight up with with the ILM as well. But at Manchester, we are looking as well at other programs where we might actually help you develop this. further. But yes, you can certainly have different progression routes and develop the certificate using what you've done here and then bouncing onto it with the ILM.
I think if people are looking to get value for money, if you're going to do a program, it's nice to come out of it with some sort of qualification you can put on your CV, right?
Definitely, yeah. I think that's one thing that we've listened to in particular is the value of having an award at the end of this. And again, like I say, you do have to do some work for that. Obviously, with any award, you'll have to do an assessment, and we tried to make that assessment as light as possible and about you. So we're not asking you to write assessments on company X 300 miles around the world. It's about you. It's about your organisation. So something that you know a lot about, basically. So it should be relatively easy, I would say, to do this, the assessments and get the award on this, providing you want to put the time in.
And there's just one question that's come in from Bob, which kind of carries on this conversation around the levels. Bob's asked, how does this particular course compare to a CMI level 8 in strategic direction and leadership? You got that one, Dane?
Yeah, sorry, yes, I'm just reading it.
Yeah.
Sorry again. CMI level 8 in strategic direction leadership. So we do actually offer the level 8 CMI, but that's on a different program. And again, looking at our suites of programs, that we offer that on our AMAC program, the level 8 CMI. There are subtle differences between all of these awards that are out there, so I'm happy to have we'd have to look at a mapping exercise basically to see what is the difference between them, but it looks like you've done the CMI level 8, which is a slightly different award to what we're kind of entering here with the level 7 leadership and management. So I'd probably want to have a conversation with you one-to-one there with those differences, because you might have actually done and covered through that award some of the ideas and concepts that we deliver on this particular program. So again, it's about what's right for you. As Kieran said right at the beginning, we have many programs. It's about finding the right one for you.
Okay, I don't know if we've got many other questions. There was a great comment earlier on from, I think, Nigel, who said, do we need to press the transformation? You know, you were talking about returning to work. Are we pressing the transformation button too early? So that's a really interesting question. I don't know. What do you think of that, Dane?
It's about knowing when to press it exactly, but you should have your hand hovering over it. I think is what I'm trying to say. If you keep putting it off and putting it off and putting it off, you don't give the certainty that's needed. I say that on the backdrop that we don't have the certainty with a pandemic and with Brexit at the moment, and that's acknowledging how we work through that. And politics aside, it's about understanding how do I work through uncertainty inside this as well. Okay.
Thank you, Dane. Another great question. Joe, are you picking up that one on the level 5?
Yeah, Lisa's just asked us another question with regards to the different levels. So she's already got an ILM level 5 in leadership and management. So what's the additional value that a level 7 such as this course would bring to her?
So the level 7 is a more strategic piece. So in terms of when you're looking at the project that's to be done, it's looking at across the organisation. So again, that more strategic view of the organisation, understanding then how our various teams, our leadership styles, our strategy all pull together as well. So again, it's a step up from the level 5 and what's required in terms of the assessment as well. It's a little bit more work. It is compared to level 5, that is, and gives you that more strategic view of the organisation, or it requires you to have a more strategic approach in assessment.
Okay, I don't know if there's any more questions out there.
We're very much on time as well, aren't we?
Yeah, so just to remind everybody, this program is available right now. We will be sending out copies of the slides after this. So I'm just going to end the Q&A session for now. Dane mentioned we do have some other resources. So over the summer, when we weren't offering this program for obvious reasons, we put some of the content from the program here for you to have a look at and decide, is this the sort of thing you're looking for? Is this the sort of thing that would help you? Obviously, these are only 45-minute sessions. You won't get the full impact of coming on a program, but it is a bit of a taster for you. So there's 4 different topics there: leadership and project management, leadership in terms of strategy, that's success, understanding your leadership DNA, and getting results through teams. So they're all available and they come out in the pack, and you can click on the links and you can watch them on our YouTube channel. For more information, if you email mldp@manchester.ac.uk, that gets to me, that gets to all of the team here, or you can reply to me directly. You've got my details from the invitation that you were sent. But other than that, I think all it remains to say is to thank my colleagues, Dr. Dane Anderton and Joe Blaine, and thank you for joining us, and I hope you have a very pleasant afternoon. Thank you very much, and please stay safe.
Some very good questions as well. Thank you very much.